Well, good morning, everyone. Michele Molitor here. Wonder Women Unite. It's a wonderful, beautiful day here in Hayward, California. Hope you're having a lovely day too, from wherever you're calling in from. And before I dive into our details of our expert hour call, for those of you who are new and listening in, I just want to share with you just a wee bit about what Wonder Women Unite is. It's a group on lean-in circles that I created last year, and it's really for the purpose of helping to support the amazing women from around the world to find their voices, step into your power, and being more of who you are, really bringing your full beauty, talents, brilliance, genius to the work that you're doing in whatever shape or form that looks like. And so if you're not a member of Wonder Woman Unite, it's free. It's part of Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In Circles. You can go to leanincircles.org and look for the online only group called Wonder Woman Unite, and you'll see Wonder Woman there. She looks like this. Oh! And yeah, you can join the conversation. We literally have over 200 women from every corner of the planet in the group, and it's a beautiful thing. We have rich conversations once a month on the third Friday of every month at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. That's 12:30 Eastern and 5:30 British UK. And then the rest of the time zones, y'all have to do your own math. I'm sorry. So yeah, and then once a month, once every other month, we also have a very special expert hour call, which is what we're doing today, which is the fourth Friday of the month, same bat time, same bat place at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And today we have a very special guest on our show. I'm so excited to have her. My dear friend and colleague, Nancy Marmolejo. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you've known me long enough that you should be able to pronounce my name. So yes.
Okay, good. Phew. I can't spell it to save my life, but I try. So let me tell you a little bit about Nancy. She is an amazing coach and brilliant woman. She has been coaching folks since the early 2000s, and her company is called Talent and Genius. You can check her out at talentandgenius.com. And she's going to be sharing with us today about how you can step into your deep genius. How do you really tap into that place within you? And it's very much aligned with the work of Wonder Woman Unite, and actually my work as well as a coach and therapist. And we're kind of like, Nancy jokes, we're sisters from another mother kind of thing. So I'm very, very happy to have her here, and I'm going to let her share with you a little bit more about what deep genius means and how you can find that for yourself. So Nancy, I will graciously hand the mic over to you. And if everyone can go ahead and mute yourselves, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end, and we can unmute everybody. All right. So take it away, Nancy.
Yeah, and really feel free to pop in with questions. I don't want to just sit here and talk and take up all the airspace. If people have questions as we're going along, feel free to pop them up there. And you, Michele, I mean, just stop me at any point.
Sure thing. Yeah, if you guys have questions, just type them into the chat box, and then I will pop them up to Nancy, and we'll go that way, and then we'll open up all the mics at the end and do some more Q&A. All right.
That sounds really good. And so one of the things that Michele and I have in common is we both are always talking about helping people be in their genius, like being your genius, being your genius. And so when I find somebody else who uses that language, I know that I found, there's my heart is melting. There's my kindred spirit, because, that's that piece inside of a person that's that really unique combination of strengths and skills. And it's not necessarily based on intellectual or creative abilities, although typically when we think about genius, we think about an exceptional ability in, math, science. We think of Einstein, we think of Leonardo da Vinci, we think of someone who is just the absolute pinnacle of that field. And that's true. And the definition of genius also includes exceptional natural abilities in something. And so my argument is that we all have those exceptional abilities in something. Michele, you agree on that. That's why we both talk about helping people work in their zone of genius, or, you know, their talent and genius. So one of the things that, you know, I also want to take a look at is, what is it that makes up that unique genius inside of us? And so that's where this concept of deep genius comes up. And so as I've been working around this topic for many years, I started to think back about 20 years ago. And years ago, I was working as a teacher. That was my first career. And I had this group of high school students who were recently immigrated to the United States. Their level of English was 0. And they were from Spanish-speaking countries, and their educational level in their home country was less than a 3rd grade. So they were called pre-literates. I don't know why they were called that, because to me, pre-literate is somebody who has no literacy skill. And so these are kids who are, you know, 16, 17 years old, 15 years old, who are operating at a skill level on paper of 3rd grade or below, no English skills. So, you know, usually when you're teaching somebody a second language, you can build upon their literacy in the first language to create success in the second language, or the third or the fourth language. And so you're challenged here. And the school administrator handed me a stack of worksheets and said, you know, just keep them busy. As if to say, they're not going to last much longer here. They'll probably be out, you know, wherever, you know, in a gang, in jail, pregnant, out of the system, out of our hair. And that was how I felt when I'd hear their just dismissal of these kids. And I thought to myself, oh God, I'm not going to just, you know, give them a bunch of worksheets. I really want to find out who they are. And so I just started conversations and my own informal type of assessments. And there was this one kid named Miguel, and he was the one who people are like, nah, Miguel is like, guy's out to lunch. He doesn't have any skills in Spanish or English, just, you know, good luck. Well, it turns out he had this incredible auditory recall. You could tell him something on Monday, and word for word, he'd remember what you said on Friday. I mean, it was just like, he just had this way of recalling information. And as I started asking him about his life and his, you know, his path as an immigrant and what's going, you know, everything, he was incredibly smart. He could tell you anything and everything he's ever heard or learned in his life. He just didn't have the paper and pencil skills. But the way that his intelligence was measured in the school district was by how it showed up on paper. He didn't have that skill, but he had this incredible auditory ability, and he was smart. And there were just so many other students in that same type of situation where on paper, they did not look like they held much hope. But the more you probe into their natural skills, their natural abilities, life experiences, I mean, the experience of immigrating from one country to another under tenuous circumstances. You know, some of the students that I had, they were fleeing countries where there was civil war, where there was incredible violence and danger, poverty, you know, just a myriad of things happening. That life experience toughened them up in a way, opened their eyes up to see that they had this resilience that maybe they didn't realize they had before. I mean, there were so many skills that were woken up that was then matched with this journey, then matched with the natural abilities that they had. And I'm looking at these kids like, these are not pre-literate kids. These are not kids who, you know, we're just going to keep them busy with worksheets. These are geniuses. This is deep genius right here. I'm going to find their deep genius, reflect it back to them, and show them you are so much more than people are telling you that you are. So I got them over to these universities that were having these recruitment days. And so I'm bringing all these students where people were looking at me from my school saying, why are you taking them? These are not college-bound students. they're working at a low academic level. I said, you know what? Who else is going to expose them to this? Who else is going to open their eyes? Let's plant a seed. So I take them to universities and I take them to lecture series and, community events. And suddenly people's eyes were starting to open up. Their eyes were starting to open up. There was this one young woman and she was named Laura and she was from El Salvador. And El Salvador was, it was a war-torn country. There was just a very, very difficult place to live, to grow up, even to leave from there. So she had that life experience that was just really, really difficult, really challenging. Her mother was very traumatized and very dysfunctional as a mother. And so you have that life experience. And with Laura, it's like something about it though, it like made her resilient. She didn't let it get to her. It actually woke up a strength that maybe she would not have experienced or tapped into before. And she also had this really natural ability as a speaker, just this natural born orator. So I'm looking at this life experience, I'm looking at this innate skill. And then when she started learning about the US Constitution and the Bill of Rights, she started learning about immigrant rights. I mean, she just woke up. She woke up and suddenly this advocate for justice was born. This advocate for human rights was just, this sleeping giant emerged. And I see things like that happen and a person's life path changes. So as I'm analyzing, okay, what are the things that happened here? And I see that it's this acknowledgement and claiming of one's innate skills and strengths. So for example, with Miguel, he had this auditory recall, natural strength. Nobody ever taught this to him. With Laura, this natural ability as a public speaker. Okay, so you have this innate thing. You might be a very, like Michele, incredible empathy and intuition, artist skills, creativity. And these are things that you just, you've always been that way. And then there's this other condition around things that you've learned that mesh really well with those natural skills. So for example, Laura, she started learning about, justice and human rights and that combination of these skills as an orator and these skills as this learned skill, as in school, what she was learning in my class. And then you couple that with life-defining experiences that have woken up strengths inside of you that you didn't know that you have. So you put those three together, and that's what I call deep genius. And when we really take a strong, powerful look at those components, those innate skills, those learned skills, those life-defining moments, we can really see our unique qualification, our unique contribution, our unique value. And then you have that, and it's this jumping off point. It's this jumping off point for your career path. It's this jumping off point asking yourself, what am I here to create? It's this jumping off point saying, how do I make my life, other people's lives, the world, my business, my career, my family better by tapping into these particular strengths? So that's like my overview, introduction of deep genius. And I'm going to just pause here and see, I don't know, Michele, if you have a question or a comment, or if anybody has anything you want to say, because I have more things I want to share, but I also just want to put some natural pause points in here.
Sure. Well. No, I really just want to underscore a huge thank you to you for seeing into those beautiful children and helping them see themselves. Having worked in education for many years myself as a coach, kind of an outside looking in influence, it was always so disheartening to me to see so many teachers who were like so many of those that you had worked with, who were like, yeah, well, I can't really help them, right? I'm too busy, I'm too overwhelmed, right? And so when we can take the time to see into other people, no matter how old they are, and help them, and then reflect back to them the genius that we see in them, it's profound. And so I have a deep bow and honor to you for the work that you have done there and continue to do now with adults. So I just wanted to throw that in there and see if there's anybody else who has any questions or comments at this point before we continue. Mm, Hear, hear, what a gift to have had you as a teacher from Meryl. So thank you.
Thanks, Meryl. And thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Well, the story continues. And I stopped, I ended my career in teaching in 2002 when my daughter was born, and started my business in 2003 because I figured I basically didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to the classroom. I wanted to stay home with my daughter. And looking at this piece of me, like, okay, what I do the best in my genius is really helping to spot and reflect back another person's gifts. So kind of like I'm in the deep genius business, and I can see other people's strengths. I can reflect it back to them. And there's something about that clarity when a person has a real understanding of what they're great at. It changes so much, because before you might have been thinking in the back of your mind, oh, I think I'm kind of good at that. But there's this confirmation that happens when it's reflected back to you. So that's what I've been doing for a number of years, starting off as a coach back in 2003. And I have coached people around starting up businesses. I've coached people around leadership. I've even coached people for a number of years. A lot of people just know me in the space of marketing, because I'll take these same concepts and help entrepreneurs create a message for their business that's really a reflection of their genius, so that they connect perfectly with their ideal clients, their ideal market. And one of the other areas where I take this is to workplaces. And one of the reasons why I love to do this work around a lot of young women, especially millennial women, fascinating, but of all ages, but is that in the workplace, people don't always really understand their unique contribution. And by not understanding that, they're keeping themselves back career-wise. They will hook onto a job title. I'm a senior blah, blah, blah. I'm a, blah, it's like very like job title jargon, or this real like more jargon speak. Somebody called it jargon monoxide poisoning, where you don't really talk about what you do. It's like, I deliver superior results for maximum efficiency and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't know what you mean by that, to just speak English to me. I don't understand what you're saying. And so I take this work into workplaces and help people really understand that unique contribution they make. You might have two people who do the same thing. They might be software developers, let's say. But one person's approach in life, they might have an innate gift of simplifying the complex. So everything that they do is just about, I just want to make the simplest process possible. Another person might be coming from like creating a very beautiful and affirming experience. They might both be developing the same thing, but they have these different places they're coming from. And those come from places are based on their innate genius of what they're able to do. There's a person who's just innately equipped to create beautiful experiences, whether it's a beautiful aesthetic experience, or if it's a very emotionally affirming, beautiful experience, or this person who simplifies, who just has to get rid of the clutter and the overwhelm and the confusion. And some people are, have both of those things going on. But it gives you an opportunity to really differentiate yourself. This is how I show up in my work, and this is why I'm valuable. And for women, Wonder Women, as we all are here, being able to claim that contribution, whether you own your own business, whether you're working for somebody else, whether you are a community leader, to be able to own and claim and proclaim your value and your contribution is so affirming. And it's not about posturing, like, oh, I'm going to make myself sound really good. It's just being authentic. It's just being truthful. And if you've ever heard, there's a quote from Mark Twain, which I don't have it down pat, but it goes along the lines of, when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember so much. And so it's just, this is a place of being honest. This is a place of being in your real genius, in your strengths. So this is I see this work of helping people tap into their deep genius as being this number one kind of a self-awareness, blows the doors open. You're like, whoa, that's me? Really? I mean, that's me. I'm capable of doing that. Because at one point you're going to look in the mirror and go, no way, that's somebody else. Like, no, it is you. It really is. And so there's that whole, surprise, which for a lot of us, we forget. We forget what we're great at. We're so used to seeing what everybody else is great at and measuring ourselves against that. Okay, can I hear an amen, please? We measure ourselves against what everybody else is great at. And we forget to look back at ourselves and measure ourselves against ourselves. I was just thinking about it this morning as I was preparing for this call. When my daughter was really little, she's a teenager now, but when she was really little, I'd put her in all these different sports. I'd put her in martial arts and I put her in basketball, and she was in all these things. And martial arts and basketball was mostly boys, and they were super aggressive and way more competitive. And she was just like this, very athletically gifted girl, but she wasn't like, like that. She wasn't on that line. And I saw her get psyched out a couple of times. And I just pull her aside and I'd say, honey, you don't have to be the best. You just have to do your best. And she'd say, okay. So every day before I take her to karate or before I take her to basketball, I'd say, do you have to be the best? And she'd say, no. I said, what do you got to be? I got to be my best. I'm like, yes, that's what you got to do. It's like measure yourself against yourself first and foremost. And then, if we spend our time always measuring ourselves up against somebody else, we will always feel inadequate. I see your hand up.
I have a question, please.
Oh, yeah. I put my glasses on and see some of these.
Yeah, no, those are really fantastic points. And for everyone who's listening, who's working in the corporate world, and having gone through this myself, Nancy, what do you say to those of us who have been challenged by those really strong corporate personalities, just like your daughter was experiencing on the karate mat, those people who were psyching her out? I certainly went through that. I had people who were bullying me, were trying to psych me out and push me out of the way. And back then, when I used to be in web development, I didn't have all of this yet. I didn't have all this knowledge, and I did get psyched out and I did get pushed out. And it was devastating. And so how do we step into our power, claim our genius more fully when we're coming up against those strong personalities and egos who get threatened by it too? Because there's that as well.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. And I've witnessed that as well. And I think that, well, first of all, I have no control over people, places, and things other than myself. I cannot turn that bully into a nice person. I could try all I want. And maybe I could say or do something that will sway them, but there's no guarantee. So I can work on myself. I can work on how I get triggered and how I respond. So if somebody is acting in a certain way that's making me feel less than, then I have to start looking within. Michele, you do hypnotherapy. I mean, I think this is a perfect example of when we need to grab some other tools and to bring in things for ourselves to help ourselves not feel so triggered and threatened by certain things. That being said, if I'm in a situation, I actually gave a workshop on around this topic in a corporate setting, and there were a couple of people who were on the senior level who were sort of like, arms crossed, looking like, yeah. I took strength finders. I know everything I need to know about myself. I did this, I did that. It was like wall of resistance. And, I may or may not be able to break down that person's wall. I know there's some people who are beautiful at that, but, if I'm feeling this intense resistance as a facilitator, there's, I have the choice of either I'm going to go in there and break through it, or I'm just going to create a situation where that person's going to soften up somehow, try to get them to get some realizations. But in the workplace, I think the thing is that you have to just always remember, like, another person's behavior rarely has to do with you. So we tend to personalize another person's hard exterior as they must be doing that to us against us. The other piece is that, as we learn about ourselves and what our strengths are and what our deep genius is, then we're able to start spotting it in others. And when we see, like, so for example, Michele, you and I both use the word genius. And I had a private conversation with you a little while back, and I told you I used to feel really like territorial over the word genius. I don't want anybody else saying that. That's my word. I put that in my branding, and you and a million other people using the word genius. And I wanted to, like, stop, you can't use that. And that's my problem. Why am I being triggered by it? And it was this fear that, like, only one person in the world could talk about, genius. And then I'm thinking to myself, only one person in the world who could talk about personal growth. Those are buzzwords that are used all the time. What I need to do is embrace and celebrate everybody who's using the word genius in their business, because that's part of our movement. That's necessary. So there was a mindset shift for myself to be able to de-escalate the threat. And so so I start to see, like, the way you look at genius, Michele, is different than the way I look at genius, the way that you articulate it, what you do with it, the launching off point that you have for it, where you go with your clients once you've reached that. Where I'm going with my clients might be somewhere different. We're asking different questions. We might use this as an opening up space, but we're not necessarily, it's not like we're competing in a race and we're like, that's that. So there's something that I think can be transferred into a workplace when there's that person who triggers you, where, first of all, to not take their behavior personally. Second, getting your help to, work on what is it inside of you that's feeling triggered. I think that's really important. The confidence and the clarity to be able to claim your genius and stand strongly in it. If that person is contesting it or doubting it, if it's really truly your genius, it will shine through and show. They won't be able to challenge it and contest it. So I don't know if I'm answering your question entirely, because it's a pretty big question.
Well, no, that certainly helps.
And I want to say, I think there's some other.
Yeah, Angie had a question too, or comment. She said, what frustrates the crap out of her, let me say that with an Angie twang, and what frustrates the crap out of me is when you speak up for yourself politely and then they make you the bad guy. I can say that with love because Angie's in Atlanta, and I love you, Angie, and I love your accent. So there.
Isn't that something? Well, I think that's one of those things, like, everyone thinks you're the bad guy. I mean, it's what you say, how you say it. I don't know. I mean, I can't say there's any one universal response on how do you handle that. Is it, so for example, I know somebody who is in a work environment where it's like very, it's all about consensus, decision making by consensus. It takes forever for this organization to make decisions. And this person, disagreed with somebody in a meeting, like, I don't think that's a good idea. And it was like, oh my God, he disagreed with this person. It was like sacrilege. And it was one of those things, like, everyone was shocked. You should apologize to so-and-so because you disagreed, and you did so publicly, and politically it was not okay in the political culture of this organization. And this is a person who just said, but this is, you're asking me for my honest opinion. I'm sorry it's triggering you, but what's really going on here? And it ended up, smoothing out. But there was disruption in being able to just question, why is it not okay to bring this up? Like, who's being hurt here? Why is it threatening? And I think that organization that this person's with has a long way to go as far as developing that, but it did bring awareness to it.
And that's a really great offering that you give us, Nancy, because oftentimes those bullies aren't questioned, right? And just the mere fact, the simple answer of asking them, gosh, I'm John, I'm getting the sense that you're really defensive about me asking this question. Is there something else going on that we need to discuss? And doing that very calmly and very neutrally, not in a aggressive way or a finger poking kind of way. Well, it will take them off guard, and it creates a shift, right, that they're not expecting. And then with that shift, there's an opening for a different kind of conversation to happen. Now, it could go even, and they might get even more defensive, or they might go, right? But at the very least, it will show everybody else in the room that you're not going to be bullied, and you're not going to back down, and you're not going to do it from an aggressive, egoic standpoint. You're just doing it from a place of love and curiosity, right? I always say to people, just kill them with kindness, right? If people come at me with an aggression, I just smile, like, oh, you seem really upset. Is there something I can help you with, right? Yeah. And they're like, rah! And then they usually turn around and leave, right? Because they don't know what to do. So,
I want to respond to Meryl's question and comment here too. And what you're saying is so correct, because you're talking about empathy, and my mom was a nurse for 50 years, and that was her motto, was kill them with kindness. I love hearing you say that, Michele, and it just de-escalated a lot of situations. But I want to respond to Meryl's comment. She says, when women speak up for themselves, for their genius, they often are made to feel like they put a target on their chest. I'm hoping that's going to change in my lifetime. That's why I'm here on Lean In. That's when we Wonder Women need to unite and support one another in these situations. So let's talk about what it means to claim your genius, because I also want to talk, it's not like this, hey, everybody, this is who I am, this is what I'm all about, and so be it. Maybe that's how you want to do it, or it starts off as just a personal acknowledgement of what you're great at. So as an exercise, what I would suggest we do, let's just take a moment here and think about, okay, all right, I told you I used to be a teacher, so I'm going to get all like grammatical on you, but I want you to think about a verb, okay? A verb. A verb is an action word, run, walk, talk, eat, sleep, unite. And I want you to think about a verb that's like your power word. Like, this is really something you do well. Give you an example. There are two things I'm really, really great at. Well, actually, there's more than two. I'll say there's three verbs that I can really like hang my hat on. Like, it's like, that's what I do. Right? I teach. Like, that's what I do. I'm a teacher at heart. I reflect back to people. I see something. I'm very intuitive. I can pick things up. I'm looking at you. I'm collecting information, connecting the dots, and then reflecting it back to you. That reflection piece is really how I teach. I gather information, I reflect it back to you so that you can have an insight. That's part of my genius. Okay, that's part of my strength. And there's this whole piece. I love to ignite people, ignite them with an idea, ignite them with a new way of seeing and being and approaching and getting excited about something. And so I can say that these are components of my genius: to teach, to ignite, to reflect. Those are all verbs. They're all my power words. I don't feel like a target when I claim that. I just feel like I'm letting you know what I'm great at. Like, I'm not great at designing a space, for example. I'm not good at analyzing complex data. No, I'm there's lots of things I'm not very good at. I defer to the people who are great at those things and say, why don't you do that? They come to me and say, Nancy, I am stuck going around in circles. I can't get through this idea. I can't get through this thought process. I'm trying to, sometimes people call me up, they're like, I need a name for this program I'm doing, or I need an idea for this thing I'm creating and developing. And they can't think of that, and I can. Someone can't really see all that they bring to the table. Say, God, you know, I don't know what's great about me. And through a few minutes, I can reflect it back to them. So I can claim that as my greatness and not feel like it's suddenly, you know, I could be identified as a target because of that. So in response to you, Meryl, I just want to encourage you to really think about some of these strengths that you have. If you can think of it in the terms of a verb is a very powerful word because it's an action word. And when we think of a verb, you know, reflect, ignite, teach, we can actually see that happening. We feel it happening. So it's more in our senses, as opposed to sometimes when people describe their genius, they want to use a lot of adjectives like calming, soothing, beautiful, peaceful. It's like, that's great, but it doesn't give me a picture of what's going on. So if everybody wants to just hang here for a second and think about what are some words, you know, simplify, analyze, empathize, guide, explore, teach, catalyze, ignite, spark, reflect, teach. Did I already say that? You know, there's just so many. Strategize. All right. So I'm throwing some out there. You could actually go online and look up, you know, list of verbs in Google and find some.
I get hung up on what proper English term it is, but verbs, I like verbs. Verbs are great. So yeah, if you guys want to type into the chat box, what are your, you know, top 3 action verbs? Ba-ba-da! You know, your Wonder Woman verbs. Your WWVs.
Okay. And I see Meryl was saying, I wasn't actually speaking about myself. I'm speaking to women in the corporate world and some of my clients and what I see on TV. So same thing, you know, same thing. It's just, I think that there's a gentle progression. I mean, if somebody in the corporate world says, I'm great at simplifying complex information, I see that as them just honestly stating their assets. So. Are we still here? I was having
a Yep. No, we're all here. We're listening.
For a second.
It's all good. Yeah. No. Zoom is a beautiful thing, except when the internet doesn't choose to work properly. You know.
That is correct. I have actually. I can look here, and I have power words. I have lists and lists of them. Values and power words. Oh boy, power words. Yeah.
Maybe that's
so many.
Maybe that's something. If you have it in a document, maybe you can share it with the group, and I can post that up in the group, and we can, you know, we can start to see what everybody else's power words. That'd be really fun.
Oh my goodness, where did I get this? I have. Oh wait, this is more. No, that's the wrong doc. Yeah, I will find something. I have lists and lists of verbs that are just. It's so much fun. You can go online and find things. It's just so much fun to just look up all these different words. So I can find. Let me see.
Yes, it is hard to choose, Meryl. And I would agree with your 3. Well, you're excellent at that. I would say one of Angie's is just head for numbers. That's not a verb though. But
well, yeah, you know, sometimes you have to be a little like, you know.
She can be very analytical when she needs to be. Yes.
Yeah.
And she wrote in the chat box, analytical.
Sorry, you know, one of the things that I think is one of the most valuable strengths right now in our world, in our society, is the ability to simplify, because we live in such an overwhelmed world. And my clients who are really great at simplifying something, really try to position them around that, because they're the solution to overwhelm. And so that's, and then simplify what, for whom. So what can happen? There's other people who, they can take something giant and whittle it down to something little. And there's other people who know how to take the seed of an idea and turn it into something big and great. Where, what part of it are you the most adept? And I look at myself, and I look at some of my genius components. And one of the realizations that I have come to is that I'm a starter. I love to fire start, like help people just, ignite the idea. And there's like this, like when a plane takes off, it uses most of its fuel in takeoff, like, pow, here we go. And then there's it's different once they're in flight and they're moving. There are people who want to support the progress of an idea or an action after it's ignited. They like, the worst thing they want to do is be the fire starter. They're like, oh my God, I don't know where to start. They want it already started so they can support it and see it through to the end and see it through. And so I partner with people who love to do that supportive, carry it on work, because by the time we're done fire water, I need a nap. It's heavy duty work. So understanding that the other part of my genius work is in those initial phases of transformation, like, that's awesome. And then there are coaches, consultants, there's other programs, offers, things that people do that carry things through. So having that understanding of what is your genius, where does it operate the best? What are the conditions and circumstances around it that feed and cultivate your deep genius? Those are other things to think about. And then to come back to that question, okay, now understanding this. So understanding that we've got people who are, strategists, listen, empathize, empower, analyze. What are you here to create? What's your next creation? What's the path that you're on as a result of that? And that is an important piece, because one of the things I want to warn people about is, don't just get stuck circling the drain around your who am I, oh, but who am I really? It's like, you can go through this. There are people who spend decades, searching the question, who am I? And they never actually do anything with it. It just becomes this like obsessive navel gazing. Nothing wrong with navel gazing, but every now and then we have to step out into the world. So my next question to people is, okay, having this understanding, and understanding that your genius is going to be revealing itself to you, every day you'll have a new glimpse into your capabilities and things. What are you here to create? How is this going to impact who you are, what you do, how you interact with others? How do you lead from this place? How do you develop your leadership capacity? How do you identify the genius in others? How are you going to build leadership capacity in others by recognizing their genius and helping them in the same way? So it has to multiply itself. It has to propagate. And that, I think, is the ultimate goal, is not for us to just stop and obsess on who am I and what I do and what am I all about, because you're going to be asking yourself that till your last dying breath. But what you can do is move forward by asking yourself, what are you here to create?
And that's such a beautiful point, Nancy. Thank you. I would say, I would add to that, it's the, how do you do what you love and love what you do? What's the thing within you that has to be expressed out into the world, that just, it can't lie dormant within you? And what I love so much about your work, it's such a great catalyst for people, particularly in their 40s and 50s, when we come across that, what some people call a midlife crisis. I tend to call it more of an awakening, where we like, oh, this is my genius. How do I use that, right? So I think there's a huge need for you and your work and your insights in that arena. But also, as you mentioned earlier, with the millennials who tend to be, I don't know, well, I won't say that. I would say who are more in search of, I think, than older generations have been at that age, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to find more meaning, more purpose in their work and their lives. And being able to share that message with them would be huge. And, you know, Nancy mentioned earlier that she has a teenage daughter who's beautiful. She's such a lovely young woman. And one of my favorite things that's coming soon, I hope, to a Facebook page near you is the carpool deep genius karaoke conversations that she shares.
Carpool wisdom.
Carpool wisdom.
Carpool wisdom. Look for it. Yes.
Yes. So it's the wisdom that comes from the intriguing conversations that happens with a gaggle of teenage girls in a car on the way to school every day. So it'll be fun to see how you can interweave these two there.
Yeah, and you know, that's a good observation. And school just started, so we're, you know, hopefully we'll get a bunch of girls in the new travel pattern, so it's not going to be the same old thing. But what happened, I just tell people, if you go on Facebook and you look up hashtag carpool wisdom, there's a good chance you might find some of my entries on that. And I drive 4 girls to school in the morning, and there's this traffic jam to get to the school where we would be in traffic for like 20 to 25 minutes. And these girls would just be yakking away. And I'm listening to everything they're saying. And just like, so through that process of being able to reflect, sometimes I'd respond back to them. And sometimes I just listen and maybe just say a little something. But it was that, that ability to use those teach, ignite, reflect skills of mine. There were times they were like talking about somebody and they were saying really negative things about a person at school. And then I'd, you know, if it was about a boy, I'd turn around and I said, do you know what? Do you know that middle school is probably the worst time of every guy's life? If you were to ask him, I said, I can pull a room full of adult men and say, when was the worst time of your life? They will all raise their hands and say middle school. Can you girls just have a little compassion, because you are these full-grown, fully developed women, and they are these little bony children, and they know it. And they are so self-conscious of the fact that you are emotionally and physically more developed, and they're insecure. And be nice to them now, because later on in life, if they're walking around with these wounds, they're going to grow up to be jerky men. And so I'm just really trying to, if your life path involves you being with a man, then that, I want it to be a nice one, you know, and I want nice men in this world. And they crack up. And so they're getting out of the car, and it's like, all right, girls, bye, have a good day. And then they'll go, yeah, and we'll be nice to the boys. And it's just like those little moments. And then going and capturing it in a Facebook post, because it was so fresh on my mind. That seemed to be the place where I could capture it. But, you know, those are those little places of being able to bring our deep genius into day-to-day life. It's not always about, you know, how can I use this to advance my business or my career? It's how can I use this deep genius to live a richer life, to teach the next generation, to really be in my place of purpose. So that's always been lots of fun. Thanks for mentioning that, Michele. Now that we're 5 minutes away from school now, we don't have this long commute. I know I have to like find reasons to drive these girls places, because I just need them in the car talking. I just need them there. I listen to them and they crack me up.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to witness. Jane said, you know, she loves being able to eavesdrop on the conversations with her daughter and her friends, even though her daughter's a grown woman. But yeah, you know, the more that each of us taps into and better understands our own innate genius, the better human beings we become. And we're more able to reflect back the genius of others, because our ego is not in the way that creates such fragileness for people. And so I really love the work that you do and how that you do it, and in all the different ways that it shows up in the world. And we have a couple more minutes here on the call. Wanted to see if you ladies on the call had any other questions. You can unmute yourself or just type it into the chat box, and we can have a few more questions here before the end of the call. Anybody? Wow, that went fast. Yes, I know it does. Time flies when you're having fun and having rich, yummy, luscious conversations about things that are important.
This
Well,
was
Nancy,
really fun. Thank you, Michele.
Oh, no, my sincere pleasure. I was just going to say, if people would like to learn more about your work or would like to talk with you further about potentially engaging with you individually, Nancy, how can they find you?
I'll put something in the chat right now. That's to a Deep Genius page. You can talentandgenius.com is my website, and my email, I'll put my email in the chat box, or if anybody's watching this afterwards, it's Nancy, Nancy, at talentandgenius.com, all spelled out. That's my direct email address. And then I did make a page recently that's talentandgenius.com/deep genius. And I think it's just like, oops, you know what? I take that back. That is not a page on my website. Ignore that Deep Genius page. I just clicked it and it takes us to, is not administrative accuracy and web items. I thought that page was set up. So
coming soon to a theater near you.
I guess maybe it's one of those drafts that I thought I published. Oops. So somebody out there has a deep genius of not missing a detail. Okay, I bow to you. I bow to
yes, you. God bless the people who love details.
I do not measure myself against you, because I will always fail if I do that. You will always win. And so that is a gift you have, and I admire you for it. So I think that there are definitely, you know, those are those things. You know, when we see somebody, I want to end with this, recognizing what you bring to the table, but also recognizing what other people. Be observant and just note, like if somebody is really good at taking little tiny disparate objects and arranging them beautifully on a little space, you know, or some people just have that design gift, acknowledge them for that. Acknowledge them for their sense of divine order. Acknowledge them for their ability to avoid drama, chaos. You know, acknowledge them for a physical, a culinary and artistic talent, skill. I mean, there's so many things that people do. You might notice that somebody just has infinite patience, or somebody else is just, or gifted at just bringing people together, breaking the ice. I mean, these are innate gifts. And the more we acknowledge them and the people around us, then we create this as a common thing to do and say as part of our interactions with people. And it's not false compliments either. It's not flattery. It is true acknowledgement that I see you. I see you, I acknowledge you, and isn't that cool that you have that? And it might blow somebody's mind and they might go, what are you talking about? Anybody can do that. And you're like, nope.
No, and that's so true. In the 16 years I've been coaching, I found that every human being just wants to be seen and heard and appreciated for their talent and genius that they bring, right? And we don't get that kind of reflection very often. And I think that's why coaching has become such a worldwide phenomenon, quite frankly, because we need that, we crave that. And so when you can give those love bombs to people like, wow, that's really amazing. How do you do that? You know, people are like, really? Because when it is such an innate gift, it's like breathing. We're not even aware of it. We take it for granted. and we don't even realize that, oh, well, everyone else can't do that, right? And so
Right?
just reflecting that back to them, they're like, oh, hey, you're right. Cool, thanks, right? And then they walk away a little lighter, and they stand up a little taller and feel a little better, and then that gets passed out into the world, you know. So I love that. I love that.
I love that too. I love that you say love bomb. I love that. I just want let's just do it. Ooh, love bombs.
Yes,
So,
especially this weekend with some of the activities that are happening, at least here in the Bay Area. You
oh
know,
yeah.
wherever you are in the world, there's probably something happening too. But you know, spread some love this weekend. Spread some love. So I just really want to thank you, Nancy, from the bottom of my heart, for your time today and sharing your genius with us and your wisdom that you've gathered along your path. And please take a moment to visit her website, everyone, talentandgenius.com. You can also check out Nancy on Facebook.
And at some point, deep genius.
Yeah, we'll get there any moment now, any moment now. But Nancy's always sharing a lot of great insights and wisdom on her Facebook page as well. And yeah, so thank you for being here on the Wonder Woman, let's try that again. Wonder Women Unite Expert Hour call. Stay tuned. Our next Wonder Woman call will be September 21st, Friday, September 21st. So I hope you all can join us then. And thank you so much, everyone. It's a pleasure and a joy for me to be here with you. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and a blessed weekend. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.